for our session. Everybody preparing and contributing something to the session, not just listening. So thank you for those suggestions. And like Katie, I looked at those suggestions and they're pretty good. As many of you know, I'll be in Ganta and probably Lom Swin as well, and Vinh Tan, probably Hanoi, the last week of November. And one thing that we do want to do as a group of colleagues is focus on the narrative of these profiles so that we have them done and they can be part of our draft of the Tiếng Anh text for the teachers. So while you're conducting the interviews in Vietnamese and in English and taking really good, high quality photographs of the people that are going to be the story, I can work with you on turning that observation, that data, the notes you've taken into good narrative. And that will really set the Bending Bamboo books apart from other materials for learning English. This will be the first language learning material in the Mekong Delta that features the Vietnamese people. I just think that's fabulous. So everybody's contribution is important. Let me go right to the PowerPoint, and in the middle of the PowerPoint, I will open up the video that Katie introduced in the pre-form materials. It's on Walter Isaacson. She also gave you a link to a 2-page document that I wrote, which has the tape script of the video, and then on the left has my annotated comments about vocabulary and idioms in the tape script. So you might want to have that open, or maybe you've printed it out, so put it by your laptop, and you can have that as a reference as we watch the video, and then as a group we will discuss the video. It's about innovation, and this week's topic is innovators, innovation. And innovation is the most important thing that we can bring forward as we talk about cities of the future. So Tiếng Anh, our good friends at Pearson Publishing House who gave us Tiếng Anh, open, in Unit 11 talking about cities of the future with pictures of spaceships from a cartoon, from a television show that I used to watch when I was a little boy. The show was called The Jetsons. And frankly, that's kind of irrelevant to 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years into the future for the Mekong Delta and its cities. So we want Bending Bamboo, we want your input to be about the cities of the future in the Delta, not cartoon material from Tiếng Anh. Big difference. Okay, let's go to the PowerPoint. All right. Beginning, I think, next week, I'm going to change the opening template of the Bending Bamboo here because we finally have a contract signed with a sponsor, IEEE, so we will need to add their logo to this cover page. It has taken us only 13 months to close that contract and to get their sponsorship in line for Bending Bamboo. But we have it. Here we are at Forum 6. We've got a few more to go this semester. And again, Liz's schedule will change towards the end, so she'll be able to join us for the last 3. And here is an overview again. We talked about this last week of how we are framing the 20 pages of each chapter. So with all of the introductory and index materials added to the teacher text, it will be 10 chapters times 20 pages, that's 200 pages, plus the text introduction and index another 20 pages. So about a 220-page book that we're working on. And in the middle here, I've got a picture of Walter Isaacson and a rather well-received book that he just published called The Innovators. And the 4 people that are featured there in his book, Lovelace from the 19th century, one of the original supporters of people that were thinking about computing. So long before we had computers, there were people who had an idea about what it meant to compute in a different kind of way. And she was an heiress with funds to support scientists to put their ideas into action. And then the top right is a picture of Steve Jobs, who launched Macintosh and Apple and the iPads, the iPhones, and so many things that changed our lives. And on the bottom right is Lessing, who is a mid-20th century computer scientist, very marginalized in his own time, and yet he was the person that put into motion so many things that became our computer. And then bottom left is Bill Gates. He and Paul Allen created Microsoft. Paul Allen died this week at age 65, but he and Bill Gates, as young teenagers at their high school, and I want to say that again, Paul Allen and Bill Gates, as young teenagers at their high school, started the creation of Microsoft. And so when we are preparing materials for high school students, we can be bold in imagining what they are capable of. On the bottom left, I've taken the 3 pictures that I introduced last week and the week before, and I'm beginning to show that their stories, they interrelate, they overlap. As we capture the human interest of people in bending bamboo, we want to show that not only the topics, identity, entertainment, health care, education, but also the stories of the people, the human interest, all of these interrelate. So again, here's an image of Lovelace, Jobs, Lessing, and Gates, examples that Walter Isaacson provides of people who combined art and science. Neither of these 4 people was simply an artist, neither was simply a scientist. They are 4 people who combined art with science, and that created the computer age. So if you have your script and my notes, maybe you've got that on a separate platform or on a tablet, have that. And I'm going to go to Isaacson's piece here. This is from a series called Brief But Spectacular. This is a weekly feature that lasts just 3.5 minutes, 3.5 minutes every Friday evening. And it's on the PBS NewsHour. PBS stands for the Public Broadcasting Service. And what is important about PBS in our news broadcasting is that there are no commercials. It is supported by viewers, donors. I think Liz and I give $15 a month to PBS. We should probably give more. But there's a whole library of these brief but spectacular videos on PBS of people who are combining art and science. So here is Walter Isaacson. That's the one we are looking at. I also thought about using Jay Allison, who created the Moth Radio Hour. And he's the founder of transom.org. Maybe we'll pick up Jay Allison and the Moth Radio Hour a little bit later in another week. But today, let's look at Walter Isaacson. So you can see here, he's a journalist.
You have to stop screen share and share the video screen.
Right now, so this doesn't show?
No, so you're still on your PowerPoint. You need to stop screen share and then share the website where the video is.
Thank you, Katie.
Yep.
Stop screen share. Got it. And now I go to my PowerPoint, and I will try all that again. And here goes Isaacson.
Another episode of our weekly series, Spectacular. Tonight we hear
You're
from
not screen sharing.
author Walter Isaacson. His biographies of influential figures range from
Dan, you're not screen sharing.
Lovelace. Isaacson believes that those who thrive at the intersection.
Hang on. Got it.
Good.
Okay, is it
Another
okay now?
episode of our weekly series, Brief but Spectacular. Tonight we hear from journalist, professor, and author Walter Isaacson. His biographies of influential figures range from Leonardo da Vinci to Stephen Hawking. Isaacson believes that those who thrive at the intersection of art and sciences are the ones who have become a part of history.
You know, I had a mentor in New Orleans, sort of a family friend, great novelist, Walker Percy. He said there were two types of people come out of Louisiana, preachers and storytellers. He said, for heaven's sake, be a storyteller. The world has too many preachers. I like to take on subjects for my biography that stand in the intersection between the arts and the sciences. Because whether it was Benjamin Franklin or Steve Jobs or Leonardo da Vinci, I think that's what gives creativity. Steve Jobs, whenever he did a product launch, would show street signs showing that intersection of the arts and sciences. That's what Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man is all about. And when Einstein was looking for the theories of relativity, he pulled out his violin to play Mozart. And of course, Benjamin Franklin flying a kite in the rain, those electricity experiments helped him understand the notion of checks, balances, pluses, minuses that we see in our Constitution. When I was working on Leonardo da Vinci, the biggest insights I had was going page by page through the 7,200 pages of notebooks that he had left behind. And I realized, since I couldn't get Steve Jobs' notes from the 1990s, because they were all on some computer where the operating system no longer worked, how wonderful of a technology the storage of information paper is. Its battery never runs down, its operating system never goes out of style, and 500 years later, we can just sit there and marvel at Leonardo's notebooks. Leonardo da Vinci never outgrew his wonder years. He even had a question that I love, which is, describe the tongue of a woodpecker. Who wakes up one morning and puts that on their to-do list? Whether I was at the Aspen Institute or Time Magazine or CNN, I know a lot of smart people. But it soon occurred to me that smart people are a dime a dozen. And they often don't amount to much. What matters is being innovative, creative, and imaginative. And that requires that type of out-of-the-box thinking and curiosity you see in everybody from Leonardo da Vinci to Steve Jobs. I like being a storyteller. And when I was a young writer at Time and I could do cover stories and talk about a person who had changed history, like Jeff Bezos in the 1990s, you know, we made him Person of the Year. And you think, wow, that's interesting. That's satisfying to show how somebody's changing the course of history. And so to be a writer where I can look at other people's lives and realize it's part of something larger than myself or ourselves, but how people become a part of history. I'm Walter Isaacson, and this is my brief and perhaps spectacular take on what it's like to write about people.
Walter's written some remarkable biographies, and you can watch.
Okay, let me just ask if there are any questions. I hope that worked. Thank you, Katie, for your coaching. You've got my tape script and my notes, and now you've seen and listened to Walter Isaacson. Let me start with any questions you have about the point he is trying to make. He says, smart people are a dime a dozen. What does that mean? I speak about it in the notes that I wrote up and the annotation I gave on the vocabulary. Say, smart people are a dime a dozen. What does that mean? Chip ahoy. I see you. Now I'm putting you on the spot. What does it mean in English when we say smart people are a dime a dozen?
My guess thing is mean that when you want to compare a dime then with a penny, which is like look similar, kind of same size, but a dime is like more valuable. But it's, you know, they can be mixed in first look or
So what can I buy with a dime?
now with the value, not much.
Maybe half a piece of gum,
Yeah.
maybe a very tiny piece of candy, maybe one of two chopsticks, maybe a toothpick. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And a dozen, so that's 12. So if I say smart people are a dime a dozen, that means the value of 12 smart people is a dime. Okay, which means they're cheap. I could get 120 smart people for a dollar. Please mute yourself, whoever's not well this morning. So Walter Isaacson's point, and he has been the editor of Time magazine. He is the president of the Aspen Institute, which is a world famous think tank. He was the executive producer of CNN. All right, so a pretty famous journalist and author. And he has interviewed on CNN and at Aspen Institute and with Time magazine, world famous people. And Time magazine every year has a person of the year. So they identify the most influential, the most shaping person in the world each year. And they devote a whole issue and the cover of their magazine to that person of the year. So Isaacson has interviewed these people. He knows them. He's written books about these people. And he says, smart people are a dime a dozen, but show me people who are innovative, who are creative, who are inventive, who are combining art and science. And he gave a few examples there of Franklin and Einstein and Da Vinci. And in his book, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Lessing, Lovelace. These are not smart people. These are people who are innovative, creative, combining art and science. And he says those are the people who shape history. Smart people, dime a dozen. They're worth half a piece of gum, a small piece of candy. But innovative, creative people shape the future. Let me go back for just a minute to the rest of the PowerPoint. And I want to make sure I do this in such a way that I don't end up on TV again. Okay, I hope that works. So as we are profiling innovative, creative, imaginative, curious people, here are 7 attributes. They are people who are combining, facing, adding, generating, tasking, relying, and opening. Let me explain. They're combining knowledge and skills to sustain the delta. They are facing their surroundings with appreciation of science and art. They are adding language and literature, art, to science, technology, engineering, and math. That generates STEAM to propel positive change. Tasking communities, starting with class, then campus, with inclusive norms, relying on data, observations, your interviews, your photos, your videos, and your analysis to tell great stories, opening our Bending Bamboo chapters, first for the teachers, later for the students, with the profiles of these I'll call them stakeholders, profiles of these innovative, creative, imaginative, curious stakeholders, and then closing every chapter of Bending Bamboo with your classes and schools, their story, because Bending Bamboo could be the way by which your students, classes, and schools are innovative, creative, imaginative, and curious. So I went online and I found this picture. It's not a terrific picture of a din. When Liz and I lived in Hanoi, we lived in Langot, and near our house, I couldn't find a picture of it in my archive, there was a din of the village ancestors, the genies who brought the craft, the product to the village. So they made got, which are the woven rice mats for a bed, in addition to growing rice. And then they took on another craft, which was hang ma. So the paper products that you burn at the altar to remember and to provide things for the ancestors. So the din in our village acknowledged ancestors who I think in a similar way combined art and science. They were not just rice farmers. They took the produce and the waste product of the rice, and they turned it into something creative, something artistic. So my first question for you is, while din are common to every community, every village in the north, are they common in the south? I don't see din in the same way in the south that I see them in the north. Are they there and I'm just not seeing them? I've seen a couple actually in Ganta, but not many. Is my analogy making sense here? That in the Delta, historically, a community will recognize the people from that community who combined art and science, and they shaped the future of their community. They gave it a product, they gave it a name, they gave it a purpose, right? Okay, I hope I'm making sense. Sometimes I'm not altogether sure, but I think I'm making sense. And so one thing that we might think about with story mapping, building on Isaacson, is we put on the map, we story map all our participating schools and locations. We help them capture data about change, maybe specifically climate change. We have very simple tools to do that. And with those schools, we tell the story of Vietnam today, which is among the 5 most vulnerable countries to climate change. And we grow bilingualism with purpose for Delta-wide STEAM-generated learning and action. Again, Isaacson says smart people are a dime a dozen. And he says, show me instead those people who are changing history. They're the ones with innovation, creativity, and imagination. The cities of the future that Ting An asks students to contemplate are likely to be shaped by those living at the curious and useful intersection of art and science. So what the hell is water? It's the human stories surrounding us, bilingualism with purpose, stories from a city of the future. Any thoughts or response? Is Isaacson's argument clear, or do you have questions about Isaacson? Questions about innovation, questions about the type of people to be interviewing and capturing their story about growing the Delta. Anbi, I'm looking at your picture here, and you work at the television station. As somebody involved at the television station, are they capturing the stories of people at the intersection of art and science that are changing the Delta, changing history?
Yes, of course, we do have like with interview some people like that, and I also give an example to Katie for the reassessment.
Anvi, you'll have to speak into your microphone in your
Turn up the
headphones.
volume of the mic and speak right into it.
If you have your headphones in, speak into the microphone on your headphone. Anvi, can you speak again, but hold the microphone next to your, so you have your headphones, right? And you have a microphone right here. Hold that microphone near your mouth. Yeah.
Perfect. So,
Okay.
Yeah, our reporters often report and interview some people who make innovation. And I also send Katie an example about that, like people who are creative and creative things.
okay. So thank you. And I think what we're trying to do with Bending Bamboo is similar to what the television station is trying to do with human interest stories. And what we can do with Bending Bamboo in the language classroom, combining language and development, is really very carefully craft narrative of people at the intersection of art and science. And so some of the suggestions that people sent to Katie, and Katie put up this morning on email, Ba Min Thi, Fun Hom Mok, and Fum Hiu, Hom Hao, Jung Den Ki. Some of these are students. Some of these are people at Kantha University. And they are people doing aquaculture, which is precisely art and science. People converting waste product into good new products that can be sold and improve our lives. That's precisely the kind of narrative that I think is useful. All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions on Walter Isaacson or innovation? When we speak of the cities of the future, we want to identify those who are going to shape that future. It will be, according to Isaacson, those who are combining art and science. Any questions or comments?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Shen.
Yeah, I just have I have a news that I want to share with everybody here. I have just received an invitation from Dragon Institute about the picture about a workshop that combine between climate change and photograph. That it took place at Kantha University on in next week 25 in Kantha University. So I will email to Katie about this workshop so that any people who are interested can register to join this.
Great, thank you, Shen.
Shen, can people bring like a few students, maybe some of their most engaged students?
I'm not sure because I'm not organizer.
Okay.
Yeah, but this invitation is in Vietnamese. Other other teacher can read it and can directly contact with the organizer.
Perfect. Yeah. So teachers, if you want to bring a some students call the organizer. I think that would be a fun activity for your students to join as well.
Yeah.
And did I hear you correctly, Sen? It's the Dragon Institute?
Yes, Drug Institute, Climate Change Institute in Canada University, Dr. Chung.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Very good. Excellent.
And Tien just messaged to the group that the workshop more specifically is about water and women in the Mekong Delta. So that's a really cool subject.
Yes.
Awesome. I wish I could go.
Talk to your boss.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Shen. I'm going to throw us into breakout groups. We're right on time. Hello, hello.
Quay trở về phòng chính. Chia nhỏ ra, phòng bự nên chia nhỏ.
All right. I thought that I had sent out my innovation assignment, but I'm sorry I didn't do that until halfway through the breakout rooms. Hopefully your discussions went well. Do we have everybody back? I think so. All right, yep, everybody's back. Okay, so we'll go through quickly. I want to know from each reporter, who is the innovator you chose? Are they alive? And why are they an innovator? Okay, so can my reporters raise their hand? Who are my reporters?
And
Somebody needs to steal the position from him.
I said is a super reporter.
Okay, so I have Yin, An, and Yin, or In, and V. Okay, so let's start with V. V, who did you choose? Are they alive? Why did you choose them?
Yeah, we decided to choose talk about Mr. Lê Thị Huyền, who is the director of an English Center on Nguyễn Văn Cừ Street behind the Technical University.
Mm-hmm.
And we chose her just because she is, as far as I know, she is the first, the only the first teacher to combine the English teaching with some volunteer work outside the classroom, and by integrating some religious activity to teach her students morality and the way to treat well with her parents, their parents. And especially recently, she organized a ceremony for the teenagers who are her students at the center to show the respect to with their parents.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Let's go to Yin. Yin. Not Yin. Yin. Yin cow. Bird. Little bird.
Okay, I will choose a person from Anxiang province because I don't know any person from Cần Thơ. And
Not a problem.
And his name is Võ Văn Tạng. He an artist. He made some paintings from rice husk and coconut leaf. One kind of palm tree, the leaf from palm tree. And his paintings are very beautiful and famous, and lots of people from Anxiang and other provinces buy his paintings as a gift to give to their guests. For example, when I have an international conference, I also buy some of his paintings because he's used very special kinds of materials, rice husk and palm tree leaf.
Great.
And this kind have to reduce the pollution because in the past, usually the rice processing companies dispose rice husk into the river. So when he used the rice husk as a material to make paintings, so that he can also contribute to the to solve environmental pollution
Great.
problem. Yeah,
Okay.
and he's also used very special kinds of chemical to preserve the rice husk and the leaf
Okay.
for a long time, and he can use the special color to create his painting. So that I think is very creative, and he can combine with science and art. So that's the reason why I choose his name.
Beautiful. A question you might ask in your interview is, how do you combine science in your art, or how do you integrate science into your art? And then he can tell you the process. That would be a good question. Another question I would like to ask him is, why is it important to create art out of these natural items? Why is it important that, or why do people like art made from natural items? That would be an interesting question.
Yes.
Okay, let's go to Yin.
We are talking about two young students of Cần Thơ Economic Technical College. They got the second prize in the Startup Student Ideas in 2017 with a project using mud generated from wastewater treatment project to plant tree. They use the mud to make fertilizers for orchids and bonsai, and the idea helps to reduce waste from the process of aquaculture products and improve environmental quality, create more choices and fertilizer for farmers. And I think it's good to talk about.
Good. I would ask, I'm just going to tell you what questions I want to know, and you can ask them on my behalf. Where are they planting these trees, and why are they planting those trees at that location, right? So maybe it's in the center of Ganta, or maybe it's in a new neighborhood or something, okay? Let's go to Anne.
Hi. Yeah, so Mekong Delta got a lot of rivers. So we want to talk a little bit about the boats, which is one of the main mean of transportation in Mekong Delta. And we talk about Mr. Huỳnh Thiện Lim, who invents the solar panels, to invent the engine for the boat instead of using gas. So that that's going to help a lot for the environment.
Okay, beautiful. I'm excited to read more about your questions for that topic. That's a really good focus. Okay, as always, reporters send me your documents that list your questions, who you're talking about, what extra resources you need, and a piece of content to go with that narrative, okay? Dan, do you have any questions or comments?
No, only to tell Ian that I think I have one of the paintings of the artist that you're describing. I'm pretty sure that is the painting that we received from Miss Quinn a number of years ago. But I like the suggestions. I like how all of you are beginning to really integrate different aspects of the curriculum. You too are integrating art and science. As we produce Bending Bamboo, that is a combination of art and science. The science is linguistics, the science is development, and the art form is that we're using language and literature and people's stories and narrative to grow a healthier Mekong Delta. So congratulations, keep it up. This is good.
Beautiful. Okay. Thanks for joining, everybody. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Oh, sorry. One more thing. We have our first global classroom on October 25th. So I will be recording that and I'll share that with you. It's really exciting. We're working with Yui and Mao and Miss Tu's classrooms and their students. So I will share that recording with you.
Maybe, Katie, that should be our focus on Friday next week with the teachers. Just lessons learned from trying to do the global classroom.
Sure. Yep. Okay.
This is a big step forward for everybody. And thanks to Mao and Zui and Tu for making it happen on your campuses.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.